your system has limited resources, right? You've got limited energy. And so you get to pick how you allocate the energy. You can either allocate it towards healing, cleanup, regeneration, or you can allocate it towards, every perceived threat that might possibly appear in the future. And so it's just shifting the allocation of resources away from anxiety and things that may or may not be a threat to positive things.
Let's ditch the quick fix and dive into today's conversation. So welcome everybody. My guest today is Jodi Sternoff Cohen. Jodi is a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, functional nutritional practitioner, and founder of Vibrant Blue Oils, where she has combined her training in nutritional therapy and aromatherapy to create unique proprietary blends of organic and wildcrafted essential oils. She has helped over 50,000 clients heal from brain-related challenges, including anxiety, insomnia, and autoimmunity. She also has a new book out this past year, Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. Welcome, Jodi. Really excited to have you here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. So as is kind of typical and customary, it's always good to kind of get an idea of how your journey has led you to where you are today. So what's a kind of a synopsis of all the different things, because you've got some really interesting history that's brought a lot of wisdom to what you're doing today.
The synopsis is necessity is the mother of invention. Life knocks you down and you figure out how to get back up. And then when you stumble upon something that works really well, that isn't kind of out in the mainstream, you feel the need to share it with other people.
And what led you to the essential oils specifically?
It was a bit of a journey. I was always an athlete, so I always thought I was healthy. And my first child was super easy, just assumed I was a great mom. Had number 2, 22 months later, not easy. Nonstop, no impulse control, kept trying parenting classes, no help. Our big Q was like, look at our nose. And he was like all over the place. One day we were at a birthday party and a friend noticed, she complimented me on how well behaved Max was that day. And then another mom handed out Ritz crackers as a snack and he Jekyll-Hyded and really, flipped and started running away. And she was like, okay, my brother was on Ritalin his whole life. And it turns out he was just allergic to weird foods. You should take him to a nutritionist. And I thought, that's easy. I've tried everything else. Why not? So I took him to a nutritionist who basically said he's super sensitive to excitotoxins, soy, corn, and dairy. Changed his diet. We changed his diet. The next day he could look at my nose. And I thought, this is insane. Like I've been banging my head against the wall and it's food. I need to learn more. So I went back and got a degree. We're both in the Pacific Northwest. The Nutritional Therapy Association was kind of offering a certification. It was one long weekend a month. It was really fabulous. I learned a ton. And then I thought I would try to help other moms with, challenging kids, because it's really, it takes a toll. People kind of assume that if a kid is hyper, it's bad parenting and it's the mom's fault. So I really thought, I didn't know that. I wish I'd known this. Like I can help other moms. But the challenge is assessing squirmy kids because they won't sit still. So also being in the Pacific Northwest, right near Bastyr, I learned a technique called muscle testing, which is really, it basically streamlines everything. You can just kind of assess and really it's a pattern of questions and answers. And you figure out what the main issue is, and then it helps you identify how you can fix it really quickly without a lot of intervention. And so basically I was doing that. I learned a lot about physiology. I kept learning. I still, read probably a book or two a week. The bottom dropped out. My husband had been really depressed since my son was born. And it got to the point where I thought he might die on my watch. And friends had an intervention and said, you need to move him to a residential treatment facility, which was a new vocabulary word at the time. And there really aren't any in the state of Washington. So we moved him to a Menninger Clinic in Houston. And once I knew he was safe and it wasn't my job to keep him safe, it was almost like my body could finally collapse. And it really hit the mat hard. My kids were 5 and 7. Suddenly I'm a single mom. I have a job. I'm like class parent, Uber volunteer, and I can barely get out of bed. So I'd get up with them. I'd make them lunch, make them breakfast, pack their lunch, get them to school, come home, crawl back in bed and set the alarm for pickup. which wasn't very sustainable. And I knew it was adrenal exhaustion. I knew what supplements I should be ingesting, and I was trying all of them. And nothing was really, I wasn't getting worse, but it wasn't really helping. And luckily, I, had helped a friend with a fundraiser who was into oils, and she came by with this big box of oils and said, these are going to help you because when you're when you're stressed, stress releases the hormone cortisol, which basically lets inflammation run rampant. And so when you're high cortisol for too long, your gut becomes so inflamed that no pill, no supplement, nothing you're ingesting is really necessarily getting in.
It's not assimilated well.
Yeah. Oils have a different route. You can inhale, they can go in. What people don't realize is nose cells are brain cells. They go directly into the brain, specifically the limbic area, which kind of helps you with mood, think anxiety, depression. They also can be absorbed quickly through the skin. And she said enough that I was intrigued. I was like, when you're kind of at rock bottom, when nothing helps, you're pretty desperate. You're like, all right, I'll try it, and every day you're kind of like, does this help? Does this hurt? If it helps, you keep it. If it hurts, we move on. So she put the box down, and I was so mentally wiped. I'm like, I'm just going to muscle test. I know it's my adrenals. I'm just going to test and see if anything in here is going to help. And at that point, I was pretty adept. So I could tell when something was a strong response or a weak response. And I got a really strong response. And I thought, oh, okay. So then I kept trying to narrow it down to figure out what oil is going to help me. And normally I get like one, and I kept getting the same 5, which stumped me for a hot second until it occurred to me, oh, wait a minute, they're liquid. I can combine them. So, new to oils, went in my kitchen, grabbed a shot glass. I'm testing, 5 drops of this, 3 drops of this. I basically put it together in the shot glass, and then knew, there are some topical remedies that you can apply over the adrenals. Apex Energetics makes them. So I kind of knew the best application point was over the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. Your kidneys are the size of your fist, and the adrenals are right on top of them. The bottom of the kidney abuts the bottom rib. So if you put your fist behind your back and line it up with your rib and just apply on top, that's your adrenals. So I did that. And suddenly I felt like myself. I was like, wait a minute, I could go running. And keep in mind, we live in like a 3-story house, and climbing the stairs felt like a lot. Like to go on my, 3-mile run, I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. So I went running, I cleaned the house, I did all the laundry, put it away. Any mom knows it's not just doing the laundry, it's folding it and putting it away. I went to the supermarket, I made their favorite meal. And I was like, that was really a win. Like that felt good. And so at night, I would get them to bed and then basically clock watch because I couldn't really fall asleep. So at around 11 at night, I thought, wait a minute. I know that there's a topical, I know that insomnia is correlated to the pineal gland's inability to release melatonin. And I recall there was a supplement that you can kind of put, I knew the pineal gland was in the middle of the brain. So I'm like, I wonder if I can do something, for sleep. So I just went downstairs and made up another blend, fortunately kind of wrote it down because I was overwhelmed at that moment. Came upstairs, put it on, and I don't even remember falling asleep. I remember my 5-year-old jumping on the bed to wake me up. And I was like, that's a win. So I just kept making things up to kind of help me through. And when I started to feel more like myself and, have the bandwidth, people were like, what are you doing? Can we try it? So they were all integrating it into their practices and having really positive results. And the Nutritional Therapy Association has an annual conference in March. And I kind of started this in October of 2012. And my friend said, you should go, you should do something with this. And I thought, well, someone's got to be doing it. So I went online. And that was the first time that I really realized no one's really using blends to balance organ systems and regions of the brain. And they make it seem so incredibly complicated. I was almost grateful that my mental capacity was compromised, because if I had started with research, I would have just felt unqualified. And so we went to the event. My background was marketing, so I was actually quite good at focus groups and that kind of presentation. We put together 100 test kits, and we sold out in the first hour. And I thought, okay, this makes sense. So yeah, I found someone who could create a website. And my background was also journalism. So I would just write a blog every week, when the kids were in bed. And I used to do yoga every morning, and my yoga studio was right by a mailbox. So I'd fill orders, at night and take them with me in my Lulu bag and put them in the mailbox before I went into yoga. And that's really how it started. And then people just started finding me.
That's an amazing reality that a lot of people experience in any of the, kind of healthcare field. You've had some kind of pain and suffering that's, led you to a journey. And in your case, it's pretty amazing. You have this background and wanted to educate yourself. And so that's really kind of a neat thing. Who's this?
This is Simba. This is my dog who likes to, my other dog, Riley, is down here, who wants to participate in the podcast. It snowed today, and dogs in snow. He's trying to say, Mom, can we go out and play?
Yeah. We're kind of getting to that point where we're kind of getting excited about this time of year, getting better days without the snow and all that fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. So, you'd mentioned muscle testing, kind of just for the listeners. What's an example of a muscle test that you've done?
Yeah.
What does that really mean? I'm familiar with applied kinesiology myself and muscle testing,
but this idea that your body knows the answer to everything. So the simplest way to do it is a sway test, and you it's yes, no questions. So show me yes. Yes for me is usually leaning forward. Show me no. No is leaning back. And sometimes, like coffee is a great example. I love it, but my body doesn't always want it. So every morning I'm like, can I have it today? And I just test. Or sometimes I'll be in the supermarket and I'll test. And it's just a good way of, it's basically tapping into your own intuition, which we all have. Mm-hmm. People can use pendulum. There are, you can make it, it's kind of like yoga. You can make it as complicated or as simple as you want. You can do a basic warrior pose and you're not really doing it wrong, but you can bend your knee a little deeper. You can twist your hip. You can, there are different levels of it, but the most easy, simple way to start is either to find a pendulum, and just ask. Yes, no for me is usually forward, back, or yes is forward, back, and no is kind of side to side. Or you can sway. People do things with their hands, that flicking. Sure. It can get, you can make it incredibly complicated, but I personally like to make things as simple as possible because I think when it's easy, people can do it.
So if you took one of the oils and you wanted to see if it was something positive for your body, you would hold the oil, or how would you do it?
Well, you can, hang on, I don't have an oil by me. You can hold the oil and either sway forward or sway back, or you can, to test it on somebody else, a really good one is to have them put their thumb and kind of middle finger together and try to, it should be strong. If it makes this is a good way to test for the pancreas and for sugar. If you hold something that's sugary, most people can't hold it. They pull it apart really easily. And if you put an oil that kind of balances the system, they'll be able to be strong. Basically what it's doing is, we're always regulating. Our body goes in and out of regulation. It's kind of like for anyone that ever ran track, you ran the 100-mile sprint, you cross the finish line, then you take a beat, you catch your breath, maybe you get some water. You don't keep running 100-mile sprints, or 100-meter sprints. You have to kind of pause and recover.
Right.
And so that recalibration helps us. And it's kind of about how quickly do you recover, because life, every day you turn on the news and you're assaulted with things that might be stressful, right? But do you stay in that kind of panicked survival state, or are you able to bounce back and be your best self again? So that's really what you're measuring is, does this kind of make your system happy? Do you feel good? Does your body like this? Or is this stressful to your body?
Well, and again, I just want to reiterate what a wonderful thing that you had that intuition, when you start saying, hey, wait a minute, I kind of understand muscle testing. What if I add this in and now I have these things that seem to be making me better? The applications and the areas of the body. So why don't we go down into a basic question here? What are essential oils really? What is kind of the basic?
Are the concentrated essences of plants. So basically you pick lavender in the field, you put it in a big pot of boiling water. The boiling water kind of pulls the oils out of the plant and the steam rises, and then oil and water don't mix. We know that, right? So oil can go down one path and then the water goes down the other one. That's called a hydrocell. And then you take that oil, that concentrated essence, which is really kind of the plant's immune system, And you can have peppermint tea, or you can use a drop of peppermint oil. We know that plants are medicinal, that they're healing. It's just really the concentrated healing power of the plant.
Yeah. And so pharmaceuticals have had, their basis many times in plants.
Yeah.
What separates outside of the manipulation in pharmaceuticals? What really separates? There's many things, I'm sure, but what really is kind of the way plant herbal medicine really is separate from pharmaceuticals, even though pharmaceuticals, claim to use plant-based kind of approach?
Well, they basically try to mimic the chemical. Well, okay, so like white willow bark is aspirin, valerian root is Valium. Basically, you can't patent a natural substance, right? If you could patent vitamin D, you'd be millionaires. So they change it. And the way it was described to me is if you hold your hand up in the mirror, right, what you see back is a reflection. Or actually, if you hold up something in writing in a mirror, it kind of says it back to you, but it's backwards. So it's trying to mimic it, but it's a little off. And so that's why we have side effects, because nature knows nature. It's biofamiliar. When you start to mimic nature and tweak nature, sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong. So I guess that's the difference.
Yeah, I've shared with my patients often, it's, one of the things is that if you can get anything as natural as you possibly can, it's going to be better for you than if man's kind of tried to manipulate it too much. It's kind of the way I try to simplify it. So you do different sources for your oils, and you do what's called wildcrafting. Could you kind of share? And then I'll kind of get into some of the conditions that we treat.
I think that the cleaner, the better, right? And so whenever something could be grown with pesticides, we make sure it's not and it's organic. Whenever something, like frankincense is the resin from trees. They're not running around spraying pesticides yet, thankfully, in, forests. So if it's something that grows in the wild and there is no reason that there would be pesticides there, and so it's not really certified organic, we just make sure we're really clear and clean about, where things are grown and how we source. So they're either certified organic if that's an option, or they're grown in the wild, because, the cleaner, the better.
Yeah, very good. And so with that, how do you test, if one was to test, for quality, how would you really know?
Yeah, there are a bunch of tests that you can run it through that we do. That kind of, it's a chemical assessment. And, we do, it's kind of like, people doing the COVID test, even though they're completely healthy. It's just kind of like to make everyone else happy,
right.
But it's a little worthless, but we do it anyway because people seem to think it makes them feel better.
Has value. Right. Gotcha. So let's kind of move into, what you're, treating and what you're recommending people use for treating. And I know you've got the history with your husband.
I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose and treat. I just offer remedies. The biggest thing is
clarification.
Your nervous system is really the foundation of everything, right? Like if you're trying to get in your car and go, if the car doesn't turn on, you're not going anywhere. Your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system controls all of your automatic functions, all the things that you do every day without thinking. You don't think, I have to breathe. You don't think, I have to digest. You don't think, immune system turn on, it just kind of happens in the background. But like a car, it has different speeds, right? It's designed for survival. So if there's something that's going to take you out, be it, a lion chasing you, a car changing lanes and not seeing you, whatever it is, when there's a danger present, you allocate resources differently. Your blood is routed away from your core, from digestion, detoxification, and to your extremities, so you can run faster. Your vision changes. The pupils, the black part of your eyes, get really big to take in more light to kind of make those survival decisions. But access to your higher decision-making power and creative problem solving, your prefrontal cortex is shut down. Because if a lion's chasing you and you're like contemplating the meaning of life, you're going to get eaten.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so the biggest thing that I think oils can help with, I think that oils can be used in combination with others. There are all these kind of highways in your body, so to speak, right? There's the digestive pathway. There's the lymph pathway. There's the endocannabinoid system. There are the energetic meridians that acupuncture runs along. There are the nerves. the on off switch. Oh, and so the opposite of when you're in survival mode, that's fight or flight, sympathetic branch of your nervous system.
Right.
And then when the danger has passed and it's recovery, you have a big party, there are plates everywhere, there are cups, maybe someone vomited in your bathroom, you clean it all up afterwards. That's kind of parasympathetic, restore, recovery, regenerate.
Right.
And you need both. You need to be able to respond to the emergency, and then you need to be able to recover after the emergency. And sadly, it's not just physical stressors like tigers chasing us down the street. It's mental stressors. Your brain doesn't know the difference between watching the news and being told that the world is going to end and actually having a physical stressor. So most of us spend too much time in that survival response, and all of the recovery mechanisms get kind of delayed maintenance, which catches up to you at a certain point in time because, when you're in survival mode, inflammation can run rampant and suddenly you have symptoms, you have pain, you're fatigued, you have all these things. So the gear shift, so to speak, between fight or flight and recovery is your vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10. It's basically the gut-brain axis. It connects the brain to the body, starts at the base of the neck, splits, and is most accessible, if you feel with me, behind your earlobe, between the earlobe and the mastoid bone. Yeah. And so there was some, and basically then it innervates all of your organs of digestion and detoxification. A lot of people have talked about activating the vagus nerve. It's like a domino effect. You stimulate the vagus nerve, you turn on parasympathetic, you turn on recovery, regenerate. You basically you gear shift your body into the healing state. And that can be challenging. You can gag yourself with a tongue depressor, cold plunges, things that are kind of moderately unpleasant and people don't run to do. But right around the time I was launching my company, 2012, I'm a yoga girl. I'm obsessed with the vagus nerve. There was some interesting research. This neuroscientist out of New York named Kevin Tracy was surgically implanting a pacemaker-like device kind of right there and using it to stimulate the vagus nerve. And he got great results. The FDA approved this for epilepsy, migraines, and depression. And when I heard that, because I was playing with sedentary oils, relaxing oils to turn on parasympathetic, and it wasn't really yielding the results I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, stimulatory, oils are stimulatory. That's what it means if you were to put an oil on your arm and it might feel hot or turn red. It's stimulatory. So clove, oregano, thyme, rosemary, peppermint, those are all stimulatory. And so I started thinking, I wonder if you put a stimulatory oil on this point, if you could stimulate the vagus nerve. So I was playing with all these combinations, and blends there is an aspect of chemistry involved, right? So clove has the most research, actually. There's a component called eugenol that's amazing for the immune system, for inflammation, for pretty much everything. That's why clove was used in the mouth during dentistry. I mean, it's kind of it's the star student of the oil constituents, but anyway, clove has fairly large molecules. They're medium size. If you were to topically apply it to the skin on its own, it would take about 20 minutes to get through.
Wouldn't go quick.
Yeah. All of the citrus oils are much more lightweight molecules. So when you combine clove, say, for example, with lime, suddenly you get the best of both. You get the stimulatory aspect of the clove and the quick acting aspect of lime. And you can use it like an acupuncture needle, gear shift, whatever you want to call it. And it's really fast. You flip a bottle, boom, it takes 2 seconds, and it's a way to just turn on your body's own healing mechanisms.
I like that. So a lot there, and I wanted to tease out a little bit. First, very good clarification on treating in comparison to supporting. We're trying to support the body's ability to do well, just like drinking water and things of that nature. You don't necessarily drink water to treat your body. But so I appreciate that clarification. The other thing is you're talking a little bit about how the body can get stuck in the sympathetic, rather than being able to have a balance between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. So in that, my question kind of comes up as you're sharing really well about how this is going to stimulate the body into the parasympathetic. What's a lay person, I consider myself pretty close to that on this topic, going to do, when you're trying to switch that gear, like you're saying, you're trying to switch that gear out of that fight or flight into the restore and repair mode. Is there a time where, hey, maybe that's not it? I'm thinking with essential is you can do that and still be able to be pretty active. You can try to switch your body into more of a parasympathetic, involvement, but still not necessarily have to lay on the couch and just, what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, yeah,
Still,
you're confusing parasympathetic with catatonic. No, it's
yeah,
not. I mean, I think of it more as anxious, or for anyone who gets hangry, like, you're starving, you're ravenous, you need to eat something. And it's that kind of edgy, unhealthy energy. And then you eat something and you're calm, you're not falling asleep. It's just kind of fight or flight is more like an anxiety attack, kind of constantly
yep,
running in the background. And what happens is your system has limited resources, right? You've got limited energy. And so you get to pick how you allocate the energy. You can either allocate it towards healing, cleanup, regeneration, or you can allocate it towards, every perceived threat that might possibly appear in the future. And so it's just shifting the allocation of resources away from anxiety and things that may or may not be a threat to positive things. So
so
it's
so that you can actually handle the situation a little bit better. And you might even do something like that in
well, and I
preparation
think
for.
your assumption was that somehow it's going to put you to sleep, but it's
Oh,
actually more energizing because it's kind of like your energy was. It's kind of like when you finish a big project, a huge deadline at work or school or whatever, and then suddenly you have all this time back, and you're like, oh my God, I could, spend an hour walking my dogs instead of 5 minutes. I could, really
yeah.
enjoy my time with my family. Like it's bonus, energy that you've been using in a way that's not efficient.
Yeah. And for me, I was trying to maybe for the listeners help distinguish between something that you would take at nighttime to go to sleep compared to what you're doing when you're just trying to get the body to calm down and jump out of the sympathetic, stuck, that kind of a deal. So that was kind of where I was going, and you explained it very well. So I appreciate that. So with the brain body connection, that, vagus nerve connection, I know when I was studying, one of the mantras that we had was C345 helps keep the heart alive. And that's the spinal nerve roots that stimulate are connected to the brain stem and the cranial nerves and things of that nature. But the brain is such a complex system, and to be able to stimulate it and to help the body, what are some of the there's anxiety, there's depression, things of that nature. What are some of the other things that you have found have been helped by supporting the nervous system this way through
Everything is foundational, right? It's kind of like digestion. It's digestion begins in the brain. It's the vagus nerve that stimulates the saliva to start breaking down the nutrients, the stomach to release hydrochloric acid, the pancreas to release enzymes, the gallbladder to release bile, the moving walkway that is our digestive system to kind of move things through so that it doesn't sit too long and you don't become constipated. It helps with detoxification. The vagus nerve basically routes blood flow to all the organs. Cells don't release toxins until you're in the parasympathetic state, and then they go, from the lymph to the fascia to the blood to the liver. If the liver is not parasympathetic, it can stay too long. The gallbladder doesn't release bile, and then motility to leave the body. One of the things that you're kind of correlating is heart rate variability and vagus nerve function. So heart rate variability being variable means that it's basically all about regulation and how quickly you recover, right? And what people don't realize is it's the vagus nerve that triggers the release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which tells the heart rate to slow down. So part of variability is being able to speed up or slow down. And if one isn't working as well as it can, your heart is pumping too hard all the time. And over time, excess wear and tear can lead to damage. So it's great that way. But, it's funny, like everything could be really complicated or could be really simple, right? You can overcomplicate anything. And my goal is really to oversimplify and to empower people. Because I think when they think it's overcomplicated, they just give up and they abandon hope before even trying. And so what I really want people, if people leave this podcast with only one thing in their mind, what I really want empower them to know is that we can't control what our governor, what any of our leaders do. We can't control what our neighbors do, but we can control our response. In fact, Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power. And that's what I really want to empower people to know, is that anything you can do to stimulate your vagus nerve. I have a great detailed chapter. You can grab it, boostthebrainbook.com/gift. Gives you 25 strategies, many of them free. It's just kind of like pressing your own pause button. So, someone sends you kind of a scathing email or text, you're upset, you're angry, you might want to respond. And then if you do in that moment, you might say something you regret. So it's just that ability to like pause, take a walk, do something else, and then come back to it and with fresh eyes. Because again, if you think you're in danger, you're going into fight or flight, I might die, and you can't really access your more powerful thinking. When you take that beat, you can either say like, I'm either not going to respond, or I'm just going to be polite because this isn't necessarily someone I want to maintain an interaction with anyway. And I just want to put, thank you for your honesty. I wish you well, like, bye-bye, or if it's someone like your mother-in-law that you actually need a relationship with, you are able to respond in a way that won't damage it. But the power, your power on how you respond is always your own. So the more you can shift your body into that calm state, the easier it is to respond in a way that you're proud of.
So keeping it simple, I love that. Making it practical and easily accessible. What's kind of a basic protocol to using essential oils? What do you typically teach to keep it kind of simple?
We have a blend called parasympathetic that's clove and lime that I kind of call the gateway drug, like, because we both know, like, everyone has their own genetic background, their own life experiences. There's no one size fits all magic bullet. But when you delineate it down to these are the systems in your body, your endocrine system, your nervous system, your digestive system, and if you can get these things in balance, that's the common denominator for everyone. So I always encourage people to start with the parasympathetic blend. And, it can be, if it's a new habit, the easiest way to start a new habit is to link it to an old habit. So I say, leave it by your toothbrush. You don't need to prompt people to brush their teeth twice a day. So when you're brushing your teeth, you'll see it there. Just put it on them. And what I found is that a lot of people, when something works, they keep doing it, right? Oh, I feel better when I do this. And it's easy. You can put it in your pocket, you can put it in your purse, you can leave it in your car. So they just start remembering, like, it's like Pavlovian, right?
Yes.
When I put this on, I feel less anxious. And start there, and then you can modify. Like, one of the other challenges, most people, their lymphatic system is a little stagnant and congested. A friend of mine is launching a health business, and she interviewed all these doctors, longevity doctors, who said that the number one factor of health is people who move. People who move are healthier. You know why? Because they're moving their lymph system, and their lymph system is actually carrying the garbage out of the body, so it doesn't recirculate and turn on the immune system and inflammation. So
Right.
Oils are great for that too.
Well, and I was just going to ask that question, the detox kind of question of using, the parasympathetic, like you said. Hey, I like that. I tell people in my office that, one of the things I use personally, and I think is a very positive, basic, easy tool, is a big exercise ball. And if you keep it somewhere where you are, maybe you will get on the exercise ball a couple of minutes a day, So I like that strategy. Keep these things where you're going to be. So when it comes to, getting that lymph system going, movement is really important. But what's kind of a protocol from an essential oil to assist that?
Yeah. And, essential oils are great for that, because that's actually what they do in the plant, is they move the fluid. And the biggest point of congestion, obviously, is the neck. The neck is the bottleneck between the brain and the body. And when you're not sleeping, when you sleep, you mobilize toxins. The lymph system in your brain kind of cleans house. But then if it can't drain down the neck, it just kind of recirculates in the brain. So the more you can kind of take oils, we have a lymph blend. The neck, the clavicles are a really big point. In fact, if you're listening, just go ahead and give your clavicles a gentle massage if they feel tender. That often means congestion. And even just, doing this, thymus thumping, whatever you can do to kind of move the energy in that area. Oils are really great for that. And I tell people to do that as often as they can. Most people A lot is a lot. So they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, just do it twice a day. And they start there. But if you can work up to like 5 or 6 times a day, that's great. And then the other points of congestion are the armpits and the bikini line. So
what was the last one there?
oh, the inguinal ligament, the bikini line,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
If you're a woman, where your underwear hits. If you're a man, if you were to wear tighty whities, kind of that area.
Right. Yeah. So good places to stimulate.
Yeah.
And is that a good point, for applying oil, or is it just better to come back to upper part for oil application for?
Well, different oils. I have very specific protocols because I think a lot of people are worried about doing it wrong or optimizing it. So parasympathetic on the vagus nerve, lymph along the neck and the clavicles. I have one for circulation. I have one, for liver and gallbladder that you put over the actual organ. If you go to my site, vibrantblueoils.com, you can see kind of every product has very detailed application points, and you can't really do it wrong. If, some people are like, I don't really want to put it there. I want to put it here instead. I'm like, great, paint your own rainbow, do whatever you want.
So in the oil thing, a couple more questions here as we get close to wrapping up. Is it pretty safe for children? Is there a different protocol for children?
I, in general, say just don't do it for children under 2.
Okay.
Just because they're so sensitive. And I kind of feel like, it's like kids aren't supposed to get headaches. Kids should be pretty healthy. Like, let them kind of unravel themselves.
That's a good point. And I'm also, I know definitely would encourage people to come to your website. I've spent a little time there in preparation for this conversation, and a lot of great information. One of the questions that, people have when they come into my office, and I don't have enough knowledge, so I usually point them somebody's direction like yours, is, do I have to dilute it? Do I have to take, an oil, and should it always be diluted, or can you do it directly on the skin? Those kinds of different questions that I'm sure you get a lot of.
It depends on the oil. Things like lavender and frankincense, it's kind of okay, but it's a little bit like, how much salt should I add to my food? It's a bit of personal preference. With our blends, we've kind of tested different levels of dilution, like homeopathy. Some things less is more, some things stronger is better. So that's one reason I kind of, in my book, I give all the recipes. And I feel like if you're a do-it-yourself person and you already have a bunch of oils in the house and just want to use them differently, buy the book, Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. It has all the recipes. If you're more of I know how to make jam, but I'd rather get it at the store. We have it ready-made and diluted for you. And to answer your question, some oils, and it depends on application point.
Yeah. So it's definitely going back to the one size doesn't fit all, and there's different oils for different reasons in different areas. Really, really good stuff. So you had that one good take home where you said, hey, if I was going to leave a take home today, I wanted to make sure people understand that, there's no way to control what you get thrown at you, but you do have an opportunity to do a different way of reacting to it, and utilizing that pause that you shared. And then that's a good opportunity probably to pause, hey, a little bit of aromatherapy, a little bit of topical therapy, whatever might get you in a state to respond in a very positive way and not have too much of that over cortisol production going on in your body. What are just a couple more that you might say in closing, or just a couple more takes that you would just share on the central?
So panic attacks, there's a whole area of chiropractic that's dedicated to functional neurology, kind of stimulating different areas of the brain. So the right hemisphere, right frontal lobe can overreact when you're having an anxiety attack. So the best way to balance that is to stimulate the left frontal lobe so that the brain, then the hemisphere is balanced. The easiest way to do that is to smell anything through the left nostril. Just plug the right nostril. Doesn't matter, any oil in your house. Peel a citrus fruit and smell the peel. And that stimulates the left frontal lobe, balances the two hemispheres, and the panic attack passes. That's
awesome. That's really good. I'm actually a chiropractor, but I have not studied enough of the cranial therapy to be really good at it. That would be another referral for me. Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead and just let us know again, a couple of the ways that people can follow up with you. And I know you've already kind of shared a little bit, but let's do that one more time. And
if you go to boostthebrainbook.com/gift and just grab a free chapter that'll, I know I talk quickly, that'll give you a lot more of the framework of some of the things I talked about. And then that will put you on our mailing list and we can send you even more information.
That's awesome. And then vibrantblueoils.com is another way to get there as well. So really, there's a lot that you have to offer and much more than we can cover in a short conversation like this. So I do hope people do go check things out that you have available. So really a pleasure to have you here today and appreciate you sharing the information that you have.